That's why when I started and in 2008 and 9, it was my time to go and explore, and I wanted to see what the whole world actually brought. How do they commemorate the death of, the life of the person? How do they conduct the death process?
Yeah.
And that intrigues me. What is your culture like? So I wanted to learn. So I get to see all this different practice.
That is
So is it like a regular thing? Every holiday you go, you try
some
to
of the
go
places,
to like
yeah, I
people
know.
think want to eat
funeral.
this dessert and all. You're like,
Yeah.
let's go to a funeral.
No, that's why people don't travel with me. They're like, no, forget about her.
Okay. Welcome everybody. Today on the MOFShroom, which is the name of our podcast, we can explain the name in a bit if it's not obvious already, is Jolie, the founder of the Life Celebrant.
Yes.
Right? And the author of this book called Dying to Meet You, Confessions of a Funeral Director. Okay, cool. So maybe just for the people who may not have heard of you yet, what is it you do?
Basically, being a funeral director, we pick up the first call when someone passes away. That's where our job comes in, to care from all the way from the transfer from the home or the hospital, and to finalize on the funeral arrangement all the way to the final resting place.
I see. So you see dead bodies on an almost daily basis.
Yeah, you can say that.
Ooh. So and you've been doing this for how long?
I started in 2004.
Yeah.
Started my own company in 2010. So yeah, you can go add up how many deceased body I've seen so far. Then.
So
are you good in math?
I think I am. I mean, I'm brown, so I'm supposed to be good at math.
Probably.
So I mean, would you say you're desensitized to seeing dead bodies?
No, unfortunately, I'm not. I wish I am, but I'm not. I think there's a lot of funerals that still affects me.
Yeah.
Because every family that we serve, I always feel, you empathize with them, you stand in their shoes, you feel for them. So some funerals, in fact, it really hits me quite badly. When I say badly, I have to find my own outlet, So I go to the gym, I go salsa dancing. I have to find ways of avenue to sort of release that stress on me. Those funerals that really affect me are baby's funeral, suicide, and sometimes when certain, like accidents, sudden death, these are the ones that always affect me.
So I mean, okay, because right now it seems like you have your profession which deals with death, but you also do salsa dancing. You say you go to the gym, and you seem to have a very undead lifestyle.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So it's kind of extreme, right? Like bouncing back and forth.
No, I think that's where I realized as I stepped into this industry accidentally in 2004 when my dad passed away. What I learned that is the master of my life is actually death. Through the death I see a lot of reflection from family, reaction from them, response from them. And I really learned, some of the things you can learn from families too. I have one incident where the granddaughter actually asked me to open up the casket because she wanted to apologize to the grandmother. And because of that particular episode, it really struck me. And I told myself I will never get upset with my mom, even though maybe she's not right. I will always give in to her. I will not want to fight with her.
Yeah.
Even though at that point in time we were still working together. So that sort of gave me a realization that all this doesn't matter when a person passes away. All this little minor petty stuff. Put the ego away. Just apologize for raising your voice or for going against her. We can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But we don't have to get into a fight and then bear grudges.
So that means, just to give a backstory and correct me if I'm wrong, your dad was also one of the pioneers in the funeral business in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
So when he passed away, what I read in interviews is that you found that he wasn't prepared for his death, and that made you kind of realize the importance of preparing for death, right? So then now your mom still runs your family business, and you run a competitor business.
Yes.
With an almost different philosophy on death.
Yes, a lot of people, I still remember in 2010 when I first started the Life Celebrant, And even with the name, you could see that there's a reason why I call it TLC, the Life Celebrant.
Yeah.
And during those years when I was working with my mom, in 2004, especially when I first started, it was an industry filled with a lot of males. They are all, usually who will end up in this kind of industry, right? You don't study for it, so there's no school to attend. So people who ended up in this job are people who are usually people who couldn't get a desk-bound job or admin work or engineer sort of work, and these people are just manual workers. And coming into the industry, being young at a point in time, I get a lot of backslash, like, no, stop changing things. 24 years old back then, I was, so you guess how old I am already. So 24 years old back then, I thought, I want to change this. I don't like this practice. And every time I suggested that, they were just, come on, stop suggesting all these changes. And they always use a Chinese phrase, 我吃盐比你吃米多. I've consumed more salt than you have consumed rice in your whole life. So that always, got me, okay, I wanted to move like 5 steps forward, but I get, back off. I have to back off like 8 steps back. And being in the industry, because my dad, when he passed away, I mean, ironically, he's a funeral director, but we were even struggling with just which photograph should we use for his funeral. We didn't expect his death. We thought it was just going to be a surgery. He was diagnosed with cancer. And he was just going through a normal surgery before he was supposed to go for chemotherapy. But he just didn't survive that operation. And so none of us actually expected his death. So when it came, I still remember the room filled with all my dad's workers, my mom, my uncle. And we were all struggling, like, which photograph should we use? So my dad has this trademark photograph, actually it's in the book too, that he hang in the office. And my mom and I, we were like trying to flip through some photograph. And my dad is a man who doesn't like to take photograph. So imagine, we have to struggle with, we don't have iPhone back then. So we were trying to find what photographs we have of him. And my uncle, who was standing at the side, he said, why don't we just use this photograph that he loved so much? That was his icon. Every time he has any newspaper publication or advertisement, he will use this photograph. So that struck me that we were not prepared. We didn't know what outfit he wanted. We just assumed this is the outfit he wants. I think he didn't even expect his death too. So that's why that also taught me that it's really important to be prepared, because I saw the struggle I experienced the struggle we have to go through. I didn't want to leave this to my mom to have to struggle. So they know what outfit I'm going to wear. My sister is an embalmer, and she asked me, what if you put on weight and you cannot fit into that green cheongsam that you have chosen? Can I cut the dress for you? I said, no, just pick another dress, okay?
So you even decided what dress? You really set it aside?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yes.
And where is it stored?
In my cupboard. So I love cheongsams.
Yeah.
So I have a whole range of cheongsam, but that particular one was the first cheongsam that I bought.
Yeah.
And I really like it. It's been, 6 years.
What if in like 40 years there's this rebellious group whose uniform is cheongsams and you want to start a war and they become the public enemy number 1? And when you die, will you still...
But it's my funeral. Why should I? It is my way.
So you don't give a damn about what?
Yeah, but I'm lying in a box. Give me a break, right?
Yeah. So then if it's your funeral, I mean, you're dead.
Yeah.
So how do you? I mean, most people say, it's my birthday because they want to experience it, right? So when you say your funeral, you're not going to be experiencing it, right? So what's the appeal to customize it?
Actually, that's a very interesting thought. In other countries, they actually have something called a living funeral. So if you know that your days are numbered, so what they do is they create their own funeral because they want to attend their own funeral.
Yeah.
So that's called a living funeral, which I think right now is a bit radical, but it's not something that we shouldn't think about.
So you mean it's like, let's say they have 2 months or they know they're going to die.
Yeah.
They hold their funeral.
They hold their funeral, but of course without the casket. But they have sort of like, it's like everyone comes together, they share stories about you. They share story about, what touches me most about you. Yeah, I think that's nice testimony.
Have you been to one of those?
No, but actually we are in plan for one of the lady who said she wanted a living funeral instead. So, but of course, physically you have to be able to attend your so-called own funeral. But I think it's a very good way to say goodbye to everybody, to sort of say it your way, and then to listen to all the good remarks or maybe the bad remarks that people say. Because imagine when you're passed on, what can you hear? I always imagine, what if when I die, and I can come back and be a soul or be a ghost, and then I want to sit together with the people who come for my funeral. I don't want to listen to what they say about me, right? So there's some movies that actually show about this, that this guy faked his funeral and he put a recorder
to see.
Yes, to see what people say when they go visit him. Like, okay, you still owe me money. And he was not a very good guy, but that sort of gave him a good reflection of what was he like, because he always think, okay, I'm the richest man, I'm very good, so he's very egoistic. But it's only through this funeral that he realized, wow, that's what everyone thinks about me. And everybody was trying to apple polish me, say that I'm the best, but actually behind the back they all hated him. So I thought that having a living funeral, radical now, but you can't say it, and there's always someone who starts it, and then maybe that will be a trend, right?
So which countries do they happen now, or is it specific to
European,
any country?
Americans? I think it's really what you want.
It's basically just a party, right?
It's just a party. It's like your birthday, right? So you celebrate every year. You celebrate your birthday. Actually, you're walking nearer and nearer to the day. So why don't make it one of those days as your farewell party? Yeah.
So then what do you think of? You know who Peter Thiel is? You know, the venture capitalist from Silicon Valley. So he was one of the co-founders of PayPal. He has a few different companies. He's like a god in Silicon Valley. So he is on a mission to fight death, and he dreams of being immortal. Be it maybe downloading your brain into the cloud.
Like there's some Black Mirror. There's also some episode
and like growing a clone of you and then inputting the thing. So how do you feel about that?
Actually, it's so bizarre. So I always imagine things, like how would it be like, and I really hope I can live to see those days. To have that. I mean, of course, like when you watch Black Mirror, there's one episode that actually talks about taking the consciousness and put it into a clone. But you may not get that sort of sense, right? Maybe the person doesn't remember certain memories. But that episode also made me think about it, like how do people treat grief? Because apparently that episode is really about grief.
It's a wife whose husband gets killed or something.
So she couldn't move out of grief, and that's why she wanted that, right? So when we think about it, but if death is something that the minute we are born, we should expect that. With life, death is certain. So why do we have a whole lifetime to manage our grief, but yet we don't seem to accept it? And we are still always in the denial stage. So when I watched that episode, what really struck me was, is it a denial that people have, or is it the attachment that we are unwilling to let go, or does it really make us feel better if this person is immortal? But imagine everybody is immortal. I think we need to find another Earth.
That's right. So would you rather that not happen and we retain this mortality?
I think if we find another place where we can live and not be overcrowded in Earth, and why not? I actually see myself, or even recently when I watch Black Panther, right? And I was thinking, wow, imagine a world like that where everything can be healed, nobody dies, but you can choose to die or not, like that guy. But that sort of made me feel that I want to live to that era to see how it's like.
And then die.
And then, well, I don't know. And then I would decide. Ask me then, okay?
No, because I was asking the question because a few years ago my dad passed away.
Oh, sorry.
And like it was see whenever now people they say they're sorry, right? I think going through that actually changed my own perspective of death as well. Because to me it was like, okay, fuck, everyone's gonna die. So when people say sorry, I mean, I accept that people are trying to be polite, but it's a part of life. So it almost made me think like, oh shit, it happened, like, it's something you never think about that will happen to someone close to you.
Exactly.
Then when it happened, I was like, oh shit, it's real. So then now when people pass away, I think there's certain grief, but part of me thinks like, am I just dead inside? Because I don't feel as sad when I hear like other people dying. So that's also something I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? But then on the flip side, I'm like, it's just like people going through a process of life. You go through puberty, you get married, and then, because I always tell my friends, now like I'm at the age where my friends are giving birth, like having kids. So I think, okay, in a few years' time, there's going to be the divorce phase.
Oh.
Then there's going to be the grandkid phase.
Okay.
Then there's going to be a death phase. Because
Yeah.
when I'm like 70, 80, all our friends would start dying. So then I'm just thinking it's part of life. So that's why when I hear the things about wanting to be immortal, I'm like, I mean, now
What's
I think...
your take though?
at this point, I feel like I would rather not people be immortal. But also, caveat is when I didn't get my iPhone, I was like, fuck, I don't need a smartphone. Then when I got it, I was like, oh my god, it's fucking amazing. Because like to me, like having that deadline of death, right, almost makes you want to do shit.
Yeah.
Like now I'm 34 and my family still thinks, what am I doing in my life with this YouTube thing? And I'm like, it kind of lights a fire under my ass.
Yeah.
If I was immortal, I could be like, I'm doing this YouTube another 10 years. After that, I'll try another thing.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's less impetus.
Sure.
But it might just be like
That's
a
true.
smartphone thing.
But I guess that's what everyone assumed, that if you go with the nature of life, you're gonna grow old. I don't know. You seems to be pessimistic about marriage, so divorce phase.
What makes you say that?
You just say that.
Did I say that?
Marriage, divorce phase, then grandchildren. I hope I give you some hope about marriage.
He skipped about 30 years of your life in between death and getting married. Like you marry and then you're dead.
I didn't say everyone's going to get divorced. I said just more people than people think.
Yeah.
Based
So-
on statistics. Because brown math,
I
that's my
understand.
thing.
So what I realize is a lot of people assume, which is what you just said, right? That then you have to think about death, but that's after marriage, that's after grandchildren. But in my line of profession, you face death at any age.
Yeah.
You don't choose, you don't have the choice to say, I think I want to die at 70, 80. We just have to say goodbye to a young kid who's 2 years old. And yeah, that really struck me because I know the father and the mom. And it just happened. So we often take it for granted that, I have time, why are you doing this YouTube thing? You have time. But actually, we might not have time because anything can happen anytime. So when you ask me, why do I plan my funeral? Because I really cannot predict when I go. I do have people asking me, what is your favorite, what would be your preferred way to exit? And is it in your sleep? Or is it an illness? Or, what other ways? Or doing things you like, right?
Yeah.
So every time when you hear people who died, in the accident or doing things that they like, they say, but at least he likes doing that.
Yeah.
But sometimes I really wonder, like, if you have a choice, what would be the choice? I remember meeting a friend and she actually said, I prefer to die in my sleep. And I said, why? I said, well, no pain. Nobody will feel the grief for me. But what I observe is that when you pass away just in your sleep, if you don't leave behind, instructions or leave behind some messages, a lot of the family actually grieve even deeper. So in our funeral study, there's a inverse relationship.
You did a study on funerals?
No, I got my funeral directing certification.
Oh.
Yes.
So you have to do like a thesis kind of thing?
No. I mean, when they actually share about, so funeral directing in Singapore, at this moment, we don't have a course yet. Hopefully one day we will. But there's a lot of exposure that you get to learn, like statistics, psychology, conflict management in the course. Yeah. So one of it is about grief. So there's an inverse relationship between the speed of the time, as in whether it's an acute death or it's a chronic death. Now, if someone is sick for a long time, family actually have time to sort of, expect that he's going to die. They will spend more time. People will fly home, right?
Yeah.
But when it's acute, in an accident or sudden death, or suddenly he was running in a triathlon, he collapsed, the grief is so high compared to someone who has time to grieve. Yeah. So that inverse relationship also made me think, should I die in my sleep? So I said, if you choose to die in your sleep, actually, it's quite selfish of you because family has no time to grieve. Right, they have to be brought into that aspect quite quickly, and they have to manage that few days of funeral.
Also, when she said die in her sleep, it's not like deteriorating health and then die in her sleep.
Just
it's just suddenly one night just die.
Yeah, that's what she meant, and I was like, wow, that's very selfish. So it makes me think about a lady that I met, I think that was in 2005 when I first started in industry. And back in 2005, this topic, is still very taboo. Nowadays, we have more people talking about funeral. But back then, she was already very prepared. And I met her and she said, I have a box. I said, what is this box comprises? So she showed it to me. There's a photograph that she's already prepared, her funeral portrait. There's a CD that she recorded herself singing. She loves singing. So she said, yeah, when I die, I want to play this. So she had time to plan. So, and I asked her, why do you do this? She said, well, at least I know when's my expiry date. And I thought, interesting.
So she had a date in mind already, or she's just preparing?
She's actually ill.
Oh,
so
okay,
she knows, doctor has already give her the prognosis that, seems good for the next few months. So this is, the time frame that you have.
Yeah.
But not every one of us are given that privilege, right? Touchwood privilege, unless you are ill, someone tells you, okay, this is your expiry date. But having said that, since, I share that the master of my life is death.
Yeah.
You don't choose your expiry date. So why don't you treat every day as if it's your expiry date and then do the things you want, even your parents said, oh, why are you doing this? Trust me, my mom until today, she still asks me, why don't you quit? Why don't you give it up? Do something else? Yeah, it's such a competitive industry. 2004, she said, why don't you do something else?
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember her saying, this industry, there's no growth. And now she's saying that, oh, it's growing too much, there are too many competitors, why don't you get out? So whatever I do in my life, I think mom being mom,
there'll be a pushback.
Yeah, she will still be like, okay, she wants the best for me. She wants me to get married, stay married, have children, grandchildren.
Have some hobbies.
I'm not against
have
marriage,
friends,
okay? Let me
go for
clarify.
holidays.
I'm not against
then you
marriage.
die.
Yes.
Not straight away. But actually, something you were saying earlier, quite interesting to me, is you don't choose your expiry date. So, especially in the West, there's a very big trend towards assisted suicides. And it's quite beautiful. Like they have parties, like you say as well, where I'm about to, leave the world and blah, blah. So what are your thoughts about that though?
Actually, in the past, I actually supported it. Why, even my partners, when his mom was not doing well, they live in France. And he kept asking me, are you aware about this assisted
euthanasia?
Euthanasia, if I use the word euthanasia. So he was actually Googling to find out how to get his mom from France to another country where it's the nearest and the fastest way to bring her there to help her. And I asked...
Because he wanted, or she wanted?
She's really struggling. She's suffering.
Okay.
She's not able to have the quality of life. Now, people choose euthanasia, from what I read, is because of the quality of life. Yeah. They couldn't choose to do the things they want. They used to be active, now they're not. They just feel that there's no meaning to life anymore. So people will end up there. And I think he felt mom was really suffering. She didn't have a quality of life for the past 6 years. It's even worse, that last year that she was on earth. And I think towards the last 2 months, he was really desperate. He really felt it was a best choice for her.
Yeah.
And I did ask him this question: did you try to ask your mom if this is what she wants? And they couldn't have this conversation. I think he's not ready. And imagine telling your mom, would you want to die? Yeah. It's not the best thing to say to your mom, right? So anyway, she passed away peacefully last year. So, but this euthanasia idea was, yes, someone really didn't have the quality of life anymore. Then they wanted to be assisted. They usually have a living funeral. They want to have a party, and then they want to part ways the way they remember. I think there's a viral story going on Facebook lately, I think before Chinese New Year. She's only 24 or 26, and she chose to...
In where?
Oh, that I'm not too...
But not Singapore.
Not now.
Not now. No.
The police will catch you.
Yes. So I mean, then I attended a talk. And it was this very interesting palliative care group, and they are against euthanasia. And the reason why they said that is because a lot of patients, they choose euthanasia not just because of quality of life, but it's the pain management. Yeah. If you manage the pain well, they can actually still have the quality of life. Yeah. So it's true, like, medication or administration. So I don't really know the gist of it, but what this group said, if you can manage the pain for the patient, maybe that's not the only way for them. If you give them the best quality of life for the last few months, why end it so quickly. And usually that's always the debate, whether euthanasia or not. But it's still debatable. I don't know.
And for you, you're kind of on the fence, is it?
I'm on the fence because I think when you are in that position, you may have a different take, But if you ask me, will I ask somebody and support? Like my partner always say, okay, when I'm in this state, please help me. And I'm just wondering, will I be able to have that courage to do that?
Yeah.
There's a movie by, oh gosh, what's the name of the girl? The girl who acted in Lord of the Rings.
Liv Tyler?
No.
Kate Blanchett.
The one who's the princess. Well, anyway, there's a movie. I think it's Me Before You, if I'm not wrong. Have you caught that movie?
No.
It's Me Before You. So the guy, he used to be like this really, he's very gorgeous. I mean, he's a handsome guy. He's rich. He has this life, like he's always skiing. He's very sportive. So the story is about her being hired to take care of him. But he's such a, nasty guy. He's very nasty towards her. But then they fell in love. And she's just a simple girl who, he probably would not put his eyes on her. But during that show, I think he was very determined that he wants to end his life. Even though he found love with her, but he felt this was not his lifestyle. Yeah. So towards the end, I mean, I think it's from a book too, that she actually went to see him before he ended his life by assistant. Assistant, yeah. Very interesting. Like shows like that make me think a lot. P.S. I Love You is another one. That what would you do if you know your expiry date is up? Will you continue to inspire your family and help them go through grief? Yeah. Because grief is such a big topic that is very hard to pinpoint. Like someone who's an alcoholic, someone who's a drug abuser, did they have unresolved grief, and that's why they they have to find ways to resolve their grief through this aid, right? So it's a topic that we should talk about, but no one talks enough about it.
Yeah, I would say for me also my perspectives changed a bit when I read some articles about these parents who decided from young that they wanted to go through assisted suicide. So when the time came, they actually brought their family together. I think one was in the UK, one was in Holland, and I think one was the one in UK where euthanasia is not legal yet. The parents got the drugs from the internet, and then they had a dinner with their family. And then the family had to leave the house for 24 hours because if they were around the time of the death, they would be criminal. Yeah, but it was such a touching story, and like the parents themselves said they could detect like becoming senile, and like they went to the hospital, high blood pressure. They took themselves out of the hospital, and then they just had a dinner. They had a lunch, and then the kids went to the beach. They killed themselves. 24 hours later, they came back, and the kids were like, "This is amazing." So they just wrote the article to share. Then it made me think, I was like, actually that is true. I think if the family is supportive, that's fine. Because like in my dad's example, I think let's say he wasn't a sudden thing. His health was declining for like 6 months. And I think even in the case that he chose to end his life, the family would not have accepted it. They would have held back, and that would have caused more issues. Exactly. I think it's I mean, in the Singapore culture, I think the Asian culture, like my relatives always say, when your time is up, you'll die. I'm like, no, that just gives you an excuse to eat mee goreng at 2 a.m. No, honestly, they eat prata and like, they're like, no lah, if his time is up, it's fine. I'm like, no, I don't believe in that. Then we have this argument, then they still eat their prata. Then I'll be sitting there like just bullshit.
But speaking about that, isn't that like if you live every day as if it's your last, right? Yeah. I think I'll be eating McDonald's every single day, right? So how do you square like wanting to be healthy, wanting to build for the long term?
Why go to the gym?
Why go to the gym?
Why go to gym? One thing is when I'm in the gym and I'm doing exercise, actually I'm thinking a lot. Like my mind, I can't tame it, So I have to use outlet. When I say I can't tame it, I'm thinking about what can I do about this situation, about this guy, what should I do for this stuff,
Are you one of those like grunts in the gym? Like all you just thinking so much, you're like,
oh no, sorry, no.
Okay.
But sometimes you have to give that extra push,
Okay, sometimes it's fine. Yeah. But like every rep,
that's just getting attention, like Okay. Usually the guys do that.
Fair enough. That's true.
Yeah, they always get my attention, like, wow, okay.
Just shut up, like,
yeah, exactly.
The last rep the first rep already like that. Oh,
I know.
Okay. But yeah, you're saying?
Yeah, I think when you, this thought always recur in my mind. Am I ready to go yet? You know? And I think we can all ask ourselves, am I ready to go yet? Even though, yes, I have prepared my things, you know, my insurance is in place, my mom doesn't have to worry, my funeral dress, everything is picked up. The people who will be speaking at my funeral, I've already told them. Yes, I already told them this is what you guys are doing. I remember my friend saying that I don't think I can make it. I think I would cry. I said, it's okay, but, you know, share about, you know, the fondest memories about me so that my mom would know. Yeah.
So in the next 10 years, let's say you meet this amazing person, you'll add that person to that list.
So
or
far,
the list is
because the
set
thing is,
already.
I lost a very good friend when I was 11.
Oh, okay.
So an issue about me is I'm really afraid to have very deep relationship or friendship with someone. You know, it's really painful when you lose that person. So I have a lot of acquaintance, but, you know, just a handful of close friends. So those people who know me, they're so-called my partner in crime, you know. So we will go party together, go salsa together, do crazy things together. So these are the people I picked up. There are some people who are allocated because they are, you know, good singers, and they are the one who's...
So you wanted to sing at your...
Yeah, invited me to karaoke, and then, you know... So there are some people who come into my life and then they sort of make an impact. Yeah. So there are people who know that you guys have to speak at my funeral, and there are people who I've listed, but they are not aware yet. I did tell them casually. I hope they will do it for me. But that concept of am I ready to go? Yeah, it always make me puzzled. Like, okay, I do every day. I ask myself, am I ready to go? Yeah, so most of the time, no, not yet. I think not yet because I do feel that there's a lot more things I want to do. You know.
But do you think you'll reach a point in time? Because you seem very ambitious, very driven.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things I want to do, and then I'm always thinking, if I die today, or when I die today, or touch wood, if I die today, if I die today, what's going to happen to my team? You know, and you know, they need to have a direction of where TLC is going to go. So there are all these thoughts that I have that, you know, am I ready to go yet? So, you know, observing your own health and eating right, I think these are things that, of course, I still, you know, my weakness is potato chips. You don't have it here, but it's okay.
We don't have potato chips.
So,
you're not ready to go yet. No potato chips for you.
So, you know, like, so I still think there's still nice pleasure, like simple pleasure in life, you still enjoy. I think also, you know, being so close to death, it really teaches you to appreciate things easily. Yeah. You know, you don't need expensive stuff. Like people ask me, do you want a ring? My partner asks, do you want a ring? I said, no, I don't need a ring. Because I don't like to wear any, because sometimes we have to touch the deceased. Yeah. So it's also good not to have any jewelries. Yeah. So these are things that I don't think it matters, but just appreciating little things. Like the other day, he made the bed. I was so happy. Like, oh my God, did you make the bed? I said, yes, I did. So, you know, little bravo. But the next day he didn't. But it's okay, you know. Yes. But little things like that, like, okay, good job, you know. Yeah. But things like that, it makes you know, make it easier for you. And I read a book called Zero Limit. Yeah. And what it teaches you is also, if your expectation is always zero, whatever comes along, you'll be happy. Yeah. So keeping that in mind, yes, so that you don't get disappointed, or so that is also daily training, your mind training. Like I said, my mind is like, I need to tame it. Yeah. So I have to think about all this questions to tame it down sometimes. Yeah.
So like you're talking about your team, and you know, you're making sure that they're on the right direction. Like I mean, actually, socially for you, right? You know how Singaporean culture is very pantang, all these things. Do you find it hard to you know, when you tell people what your profession is, or when you're trying to recruit young people to join you and all that, and you're telling them what it is, and then they have to go and tell their families what you do and all that? Exactly. Do you find that's a big issue in Singapore, like people being pantang?
Yeah, I was just sharing that. In fact, when I first started, it was a big issue. When I say big issue, 2004, you know, why would a graduate come into this industry? And how do I entice the younger generation to join this industry? 2010, when I started the Life Celebrant, also because I feel that funeral should not be a day in a lifetime. It should be a lifetime in a day. So people should get to know who you are on that particular day. So that's why when I created my company, I didn't want the word funeral in it. So that's why when you take my card, people always said, oh, are you a wedding planner? You know, I said, one of the big events in your life.
Or baby shower or something.
Yeah. So they always say, oh, maybe you're doing events. I said, well, yes, I'm doing events, like the biggest event, but you're not attending. You don't know you are attending, okay? So But yes, in fact, in the beginning, to get people, the younger generation, into our team is a big challenge. To convince, I had one staff in 2011. He came and I asked him, like, are your parents aware? Because I always ask my staff, like, are your parents aware, or your girlfriend or your wife aware that you're joining the funeral industry? And he said, no, I didn't tell my dad. I said, okay, maybe you should tell him so that, he doesn't find out later. I said, no, if I tell him, he's going to ask me to quit. So he was really hardworking. He has a very bad memory, so he's very absent-minded. So what I like about him is his cup is empty. So whenever I ask him, like, maybe this is something you should try out, so he started to have a book, so he's writing down things. He was really hardworking in that sense. And one day he came to me and said, oh boss, I have to tell you something. I said, what? I have to quit. I said, okay, what happened? He said, my dad found out. So apparently people spread, and then his cousin saw him at a funeral, told the father. The father was outraged, and he said, you better come back, because he's a Malaysian. He said, you better come back, if not, you will not get my inheritance. Yes, that's serious. So he was really groomable, but it's just, unfortunately,
he left.
He left. So back then, that always affect me, that, okay, make sure, your family knows, because family support is so important, especially if your partner is in the funeral industry. You could be having dinner, halfway, phone call comes, okay, sorry, darling, I have to go. Or in the movie theater, you have to get out halfway. And if you don't have an understanding partner, it's not going to help.
We always tell people on our team, you can only stop your activities on weekends if it's a life or death situation. But for you guys, it's like, it's always
every day.
Everything.
So that's why.
But it's also a good way to get out of stuff you hate, right? You're in like relatives. Like, oh, sorry, I gotta go because of work.
A lot of funeral directors overseas, when I'm in US, they actually told me that they have a sort of a code with their wife, and if they are in a very sticky situation, he will text SOS to his wife, and then his wife will call him like, oh, there's a transfer, please be here at what time, and then he's like, guys, sorry, death call, I gotta go.
That's why, like, if this podcast you hate it, you can just get a call and like peace out, right?
Yes.
But does it affect your let's say, like, Chinese New Year, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, if someone in your family just passed away, you can't attend visit.
Actually, there's still cultures you should observe. I think that's my take about it, that if like one of the things, if I'm invited to some events of, like, baby shower, birthday party, or even just dinner, normal dinner, is my practice or my habit to get home, shower, and then fresh set of clothing, and then go to attend the event. So I don't go straight, and it's also culturally, some of the old tradition, the myth is that if you attend a funeral, don't go straight to a wedding. Right? And then don't wear black to a wedding. All these things sort of.
So is that more your belief, or you understand that people have their beliefs?
I know, well, my grandmother is very superstitious. So when I was growing up, even my dad, I remember my neighbor. So I'm very close to the uncle who lived next door. And when I realized he was in a hospital, and I was only maybe in secondary school, so I asked my mom, I said, Ma, can we go and see uncle? My mom said no. And I said, why? Is it because your dad is in this trade, in the funeral business? So if you go to the hospital, it's as if you're waiting for him to die. So I was brought up with this, like, okay, we cannot attend, and unfortunately I didn't get to say goodbye to the uncle. He passed away in the hospital, so I only attended a wake. But because of him, I actually got very affected also. I remember I used to play piano. I still play now, but I created a tune, with just, going through that memory of this uncle. But yeah, so there's still some practice that we should observe. So I'm usually, even when my dad passed away, I was due to attend a wedding of my friend. And I actually asked my friend, like, okay, my dad just passed away. My mom asked, if you're okay for me to attend. And she said, yeah, you can come. Don't worry, my family is not pantang. But I was very hesitant. And in the end, I didn't attend. I felt,
really?
I just didn't feel good.
I mean, a big thing is actually a lot of these superstitions in Chinese families come from real practical places. Like last time when the village had one wedding, right? They needed the money needed to hold the wedding there was only that much money lah. So if you couldn't have your wedding immediately back to back, that's why they made some rule where you can't get married in the same 3 months or something.
In fact,
like that.
my mom and dad got married within the 100 days. So there's a saying, 100 days you have to get married. If not, you have to wait for 3 years. So my mom and dad got married within the 100 days on the passing of my great grandma. And I think, some traditions are still practicing, but, as you sort of, the society modernize, a lot of people just say, don't worry about all this, But I some of them I still observe, just so that, you don't want any bad luck be fallen upon them and then they blame you, like, it's all because of you. No, they are not like this, but still, you just want to be more aware, even though they might not have the courtesy to tell you like, oh, please don't attend, but you just take a back seat and like, okay, I think I will meet up with you another day after that the period 49 days or 100 days.
So do people in your industry, do you all like meet up for drinks, for social gatherings and all that?
In fact, we have an association meeting later.
Oh, okay.
Now it's better. I think in the past it was still very like you're doing your business, I'm doing my business. We're competing. Now, if we can share resources, that would be good. So one of the service that we have is Showers of Love. Showers of Love is the bathing of the deceased body in the presence of the loved ones. It actually came from the movie 2010. There was this Japanese film that won the Best Foreign Film Award.
Departures.
Yes, exactly. So that concept, 2010, when I first saw it, I was like, wow, that's a brilliant idea. In fact, 2010 was the boom of funeral industry in Singapore. That there was more awareness and all that. And I always have this concept that I want to do something like this, and last year we managed to launch it, Showers of Love. So Showers of Love, because we are the only one in Singapore, so if I only restrict to funerals that TLC is handling, that's not very fair. So we open up to all, our industry players. They can actually get our service, and then we share it.
So can you give some context of what do you mean by Showers of Love? Because what I know, or what most people probably know from the movie is that someone comes in and it's a very ritualistic, cleaning of the person's the surface of his body, and it's very beautiful. And I mean, it's shot very nicely in the film, but what is it in
So
TLC's
Showers of
context?
Love basically is almost like the same concept, but if you look at the how they do it in the Japanese style, they actually have it's just wiping the body. Now they actually have the bathing. So in that movie, it's just wiping the body without exposing the skin. So preserving the dignity of the departed. Now, they also have the bathing too, where you have a towel over the departed, and then you just bathe the body in the presence of the family. This ritual, what we found out, after starting this service, we find that it's very therapeutic for family members. Now, a lot of people probably forgotten that actually the Chinese, we should be the one who dress our departed, our parents. It's the final act of filial piety. So actually we are doing it. In fact, Muslim, Indians, they're still doing it. Tamils are doing it. But it's just because of the regulation, about maybe 8 or 10 years ago, we have to take the deceased body back to our licensed funeral embalming room. So the family are now not able to do the dressing. Some of them forgotten. But whenever I do seminar, I mention this. There will be some hands that raise up that, yes, I remember you were the one who took care of grandma. So when we do this process, in fact, the family are able to participate. They can help to wipe the hands, say some words of gratitude to thank the mom for, this pair of hands has taken care of them for so many years of their life. So giving words of gratitude. And because Showers of Love is in a very enclosed environment, so families are able to spend more time and feel safe. It's not to be, participated by friends or distant relative. It's only the next of kin and immediate family members that the family invites. So when they are part of the process, even the hairstyle, we ask them to participate with us. The dressing, they can participate too. Why? Because a lot of the funerals back, before our service started, even now they're still doing the same practice. They place the body in the casket, and then by the time you reach the funeral wake, the body is already in the coffin, in the casket. So when family members want to touch or want to put on necklace or the earrings or bracelet, they could, but it's very awkward, right? You have to reach in, and a lot of times the funeral director will say, oh, be careful, you cannot drop your tears into the casket. So all the family members step back. So there's no connection. They are not able to have that physical touch. So when I was in US or even in Australia, New Zealand, the European countries, they actually have something, they don't have a wake. Not unlike us, our funeral wake starts immediately. They actually have a funeral service, and then they have what we call a visitation. So we also have our sanctuary where we are doing the showers of love to be used as a visitation area. Now, visitation, what's the difference between, what's a parlor and a visitation? Now, parlor, you rent the place for maybe 3 days or 5 days, depending on how long you want the funeral wake to be. But a lot of times family feel obligated, like, I have to be there because in case someone comes, I don't know when the guests will come, the funeral attendees will come. And if you have it at a void deck, you probably need someone to sort of stay guard, right? 24/7. Now, having a visitation, what they do is they have a time. So, for instance, like, everybody is going to work. Okay, I would like to book the visitation sanctuary from 6:30 to let's say 10:30. So people come and then they can send invitation and say, okay, mom is going to be resting here. So please come between 6:30 to 10:30. Now, family members can go back and rest, and then they can come back again the next day for the visitation. And every time they come back to the visitation, the body is not in the coffin. They're just, just like they are lying on the bed. So if the family would like to do some, we have a family who started to, on their own initiative, they took a moisturizer that grandma liked, started to moisturize the grandma hand. We have many family members start to do things that they feel like, yesterday, we saw grandma, today let's do this for her, the hairstyle, just touching out the makeup. So we find that a lot of families start to feel the connection. They are able to find time to grieve properly, even for young life, because for young kids, usually you don't have a wake. But in our sanctuary, family can spend time without, nobody knows that there's actually a young kid inside our sanctuary, and family can feel at ease to grieve together, and they feel safe. So Showers of Love was developed from that concept, and we're very blessed that we have a premises now to be able to do that. And mind you, in Singapore, you cannot just have any premises to have a funeral. You get a lot of complaint, and then government is not going to be very happy about it.
So then how have people reacted to that? The Showers of Love.
Very well, actually.
Very well.
Very well. I think when I say very well, one of the things that I never thought of is family members actually wanted to take a selfie with their departed loved ones.
Really?
Yes. What? And they were asked, like, can you please help me take a photo? So I asked the family members, like, what motivated you to sort of take a picture with your, your departed father or mom? She said, but that looks like he's just sleeping. So that really made me feel that, wow, we really made it. Like, they really felt comforted. They are able to, they dare to do that because they just feel that, that's that, Initially, I have people who say, that's not going to work. I even have family members say, I don't want to see my father. But they are your loved ones, right? Why wouldn't you want to see them? But I think it's also, you watch too much movie, you get all this like, what if he suddenly wake up or his eyes opens up? So all these, images come into your head, and some people, they feel that, I don't want to cry, so I don't want to see him or her for the last time. So actually what we observe is family members who are more willing, they will always start first. And people who are a bit more hesitant, they will stay back. But they gradually sort of step forward to join the rest of the family members.
And when you say join them, meaning they're helping to clean and...
helping to clean, sometimes they don't participate because they emotionally... I had an uncle who he was there for his wife. His wife has passed away, but the daughter was the one who's doing all the makeup, the hairstyle. And at first I thought, like, how come this uncle keep going in and out of the sanctuary room? Because our place is such that there's a sanctuary, there's also a lounge area where they can sort of get drinks and refreshments, and then there's a washroom area, right? So he kept walking out from the sanctuary where we were caring for his wife, and his daughter was doing all the makeup. And he kept going out and in, and whenever he's in the sanctuary, he's only just holding the wife's cuffs. So I didn't quite understand why he kept doing that. Later on, when I met him and I said, so how was the experience for you? Because Showers of Love back then, we just started. And he said, actually it was very good for me, but I'm very proud of my daughter. She's so brave. She didn't cry when she's taking care of the mom. And then he said, I cannot take it. I keep crying. And then I keep going out and in. So, and I was like, oh, wow. But he said, wow, that was so nice. Just touching her and having that connection was important for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every family has different stories, and we also allow family, because in the lounge area before they enter the sanctuary, there's a lot of origami paper. So family members start to write messages, and then they fold it into any shapes. You can fold it to paper cranes, because under our showers of love, we believe that the wings of the cranes will carry the soul to paradise.
Yeah.
So they can fold cranes. I have people who actually folded a lot, like frog, heart shape, even the sampan boat also. They just like, oh, I just want to fold, even ball, and then they just place it around the deceased body.
Yeah.
So instead of flowers, we actually place all this origami paper that they have folded.
So would you say these families, in terms of their openness to things, right? Would you say they generally are more of the, I won't say progressive, but more open-minded as opposed to the more traditional?
I think in the family, there's always a mix, right? There will be people who are more open-minded. There are people who will be like, I'm not comfortable. So the people who are not comfortable, they may not join, or they may stay out. But there will be, that's why in funeral study, conflict management is such a big topic, because in a room where I'm talking to different siblings or children, everyone is going through different phase of grief. Yeah. And some may be angry, some may be in denial, some may be guilty, and some may be still in shock. But how do you manage everybody? So similarly for our showers of love, there are people who are more, okay, I want to do it. There are some people who say, oh no, I'm not comfortable. So, but what is more important is we make it available for all of them. And people who would like to, they can participate. But what we observe is a lot of times those people who didn't participate, they start to get warm up.
I see.
Yeah, and then they start to participate. And then at the end, they'll be like making all the, touch on this, touch on that. Yes.
So do you... No,
the reason I was asking is because just relating my experience. So I think I did see the video of the Showers of Love thing. And I mean, I think first of all, it's great that you are so open talking about death, because I think it is a very important thing to think about. Yeah. In fact, 2 months ago, my friend told me about this app called We Croak. Have you heard of it?
No, not yet.
It's this app that's based on this Bhutanese folklore saying that you should contemplate death 5 times a day to help you appreciate life. So it's an app that literally 5 times during the day, right? It just sends you a random quote about death. So then, and I paid 99 cents for it.
Oh, you did?
Because my friend told me like, you should download this. Then I was like, yeah, sounds cool. When he said 99 cents, I had the same response everyone has. Fuck, I'm not paying 99 cents. He was like, fuck you, just download it. And yeah, it is interesting. Like you stop, you think about death. Yeah. But because the openness to death, like the Showers of Love, right? When my dad passed away, there was a process where we had to wash him, and like it freaked the fuck out of me.
Oh wow!
Like I was like, oh my god.
Why did it freak you?
I mean, like when you're talking, I was trying to think. Okay, first of all, like I think my dad was the stereotypical Indian dad. Like he never say I love you, never show emotion and all that.
True.
So like to go from that to seeing his bare body on the table, I was like, I didn't know how to react. But because it was me and my brother, we had to do it. And the whole time I was like, I didn't know what, my mind was just like, what is happening here? I did not expect to do this. So that was a new thing for me. And even now, like the concept of Shower of Love, like because all the while from growing up, I'm like, okay, someone dies, the next time you see them is in a casket, fully clothed. I never thought about what happens in between. Then this time I was like, oh my god, like he was on the table. Like because he had been in hospital for like 6 months, he didn't look the healthiest. Then I was like, oh my god, and now you're saying willingly would I do it? Like, okay, like theoretically I think it's a great thing, like your last few moments, but actually doing it, even now I don't know how I'll react to it. And also the process of cremation, like
you have to witness, right? I heard.
You see the thing going into the cinema room, which is just everyone's crying and like, oh my god, that freaks me out. But what I did not expect is part of the Hindu tradition is you have to take the ashes and release it into the sea. So growing up, I see in movies and all the urn of ashes. I thought everything will be powder.
No.
Fuck, man! Oh my god! Like the day after,
fragments.
There was like the bone, the hip bone, and I was like, "What is this?" Then like the guy said, "Yeah, this is your dad." Then I was like, "I thought it's just ash," because I don't know. There's a lot of ash, but there's also a lot of bone.
Bones,
and we had to pick out the bone, and that again, I was like, "What is going on?" And like my uncle my uncle didn't tell me that because he has been through more of this, I guess, and I was just like, "What is going on?" So like. And I don't know whether most people would have a similar kind of starting point as me. I think most people do, because that really,
of course,
that freaked me out. So that's why my apprehension to the Showers of Love thing is like, just from my own experience, even though theoretically I think it's a great thing that everyone worked towards. So kudos to you for trying. But that's why I was asking how people have reacted to it.
I think because you have to do it, but that's why Showers of Love, we have our 2 Showers of Love angels to start the process while the family members are observing. So they are observing in on the chair, and then they can watch. And then at a certain point, we will ask them to gently introduce them about touching their hand, washing their hands. So it's the small little steps before they don't do the full showering. You have to go through that, and it's quite traumatizing for people who haven't gone through that before. So that's why we want to pace the family members instead of everybody now crowd together. Yeah, so
that makes sense.
Well, I would invite you to come to our sanctuary and take a look on our dummy. We have a dummy,
okay. I was
not a
thinking
real
like,
thing, of course not. Unless you're family members, but you're not. So we have a dummy that we actually do so for people who are very curious about our service, they said we want to see what is it about. We have people who do pre-plan, and they said, I want this after they see the service, I want my children to be the one who do this final bath for me. And that's why you can't just straight away, because you need to be assisted by our angels. So that's the introduction that we have for them. But of course, there are times where, like I said, family members do need time. So you cannot rush all of them to come in. So usually we take it step by step. wipe the hands, wipe the feet, or just wash the hair. Or even some family, they will even step forward and say, can I shampoo my mom's hair? And I say, yeah, why not? And that's what we encourage. In funeral study, value of safety, value of participation is actually one of the essential things for funeral families. If they feel safe to grieve, they will have a better process when they manage the grief. Now, a lot of families, they may not have that, because when the departed body comes into the funeral wake, imagine all your colleagues, your boss is sitting there, your friends are all sitting there, and they never see you cry. But you try to hold back your tears, like, okay, I must be cool. But when that is back, and then you feel like crying, but you're holding back because everybody is watching you, especially at the void deck, right? And you have all these kepo people walk past, kepo, who died,
correct,
and then sometimes the neighbors was like, who xiang lai, So that, there's no room of safety. So when we go to Showers of Love, there's a safety around it because it's a sanctuary. Second thing is participation, the value of participation. By getting family members to participate. So there's always a debate like, we should leave it to the professional. But actually that value of participation is essential for family. Why do we have family members who say, can I be the pallbearer? That's participation, so that's important. Just doing the hairstyle, we even have a family who say, mom love red nail polish. We give them the nail polish. Would you like to participate by helping your mom? And then they say, but I don't dare. That's okay, we'll guide you, So that helps them to realize, I didn't know I can do that. And now they say, I'm so glad I did it.
It's one of the things like going through my own wedding, right? Half of it was like, it was just fun for my friends to all have a role as a brother, and my wife as her.
You sure it was fun for them or not?
I think it was fun.
Right?
I was one of them.
Did you ask him?
But I mean, there really was something that although you're the one getting married, all that, but everyone coming together and just doing something together with you one last time before you get married, and then death. According to his definition of what life is, marriage and then death.
Okay, it was fun now. Okay, it's fun.
But so I mean, I see a big parallel in what you guys do. So it's quite funny to me because what kind of traits do you look for in people who want to join your industry? Because there's something to me. It's just, yours for you, you had the family link, but then. For new people coming in, what do you look for?
Now it's almost like the in thing, because I was talking to you before, right? Like there's all these young people, like the couple who took the wedding photos with the casket, then the girl who posted the Tinder PowerPoint slide of her. She's also.
Did you swipe right or left to her?
I'll keep that a secret. But did you read about her?
Of course.
Yeah. So she's also in the funeral business, right? And then. And then you. And then
So I think that's why I said a lot of younger generation, they feel that if I were to use this word, they feel this industry is like glamorized because it's so glamorous now. I can appear on this newspaper, I can be on Tinder, I can I mean, when I started TLC, I didn't want that direction. People ask me, why don't you also take photographs like that? I said no, it doesn't resonate with me. Now, of course, everybody has his own way of, presenting their business or even their direction. But to me, it's more about the person's life story. Why? Because the life celebrant, so that's why in 2010, I actually did my certification for funeral directing. I enrolled into a school. I also went to Australia to get my certificate in funeral celebrant. Now, funeral celebrant is something very new in Singapore. It's still, it's growing popularity within the funerals that we serve, but they didn't know it was available. So when you hear celebrant, what is a celebrant? People thought, oh, the life celebrant, why you celebrate his death? I said, no, it's the life celebrant. I'm celebrating the death of the person. The life of the person. Now, the life celebrant, when we are a funeral celebrant, we officiate the entire funeral. So when we officiate, means I have to interview you. Now, maybe I will talk to Terence, like, okay, tell me more about him. But he probably doesn't know what kind of son you are, what kind of brother you are, So then we will interview different people. Like you put on different hats, right? So maybe you are a crazy one, with your friends, but at home you're like, oh, this really obedient son that you never rebel. So these stories come together and then they actually shed light about who this person was in his lifetime. And you'll be amazed by the number of stories that we hear. I had this grandmother who passed away, and a stranger actually attended the funeral. The family feel that, oh, this is a stranger. Why is he's so young, he's 30 plus, and grandma is like in her 80s. Why would this young guy know the grandmother? And I thought it was a very beautiful story that the grandson shared during his eulogy. So this guy came and said, oh, who do you know? Naturally, all the family members stood up. So who do you know? He said, oh, actually, I know this person lying in the coffin, your grandmother. I said, oh, how do you know my grandmother? And of course, the first thought was like, is he his lover or something?
Dangerous territory.
And I was like, oh, no. So then they sat down, all the family members sat down and said, I know your grandmother. And I thought it was a very beautiful story where he said this, so he saw this grandma was drinking. She was in a hawker center and she was just drinking some water. And this young guy saw that, oh, she was alone and she was drinking water. So he went up to her and said, do you need to eat? Do you want some money? I can give you some money to eat. And this grandma is the feisty grandma who, until her old age, she refused to live with her children. Yeah. She's still very independent. So she said it in Chinese. It's like, let me translate. I'm not poor. I'm just not hungry. Okay? So don't give me your money. So then, but that struck a conversation. So the guy started to sit down, chit-chat with the grandmother, and then they became friends. And later on, what happened was he revealed that actually he wanted to commit suicide because he lost his wife a few months ago. And it was the grandmother who motivated him to continue living. Oh, wow. So they built a very nice friendship. But nobody knew about grandma. Oh, gosh, I'm getting my goosebumps. Nobody knew about, this grandmother who has impacted a stranger's life. Yeah. So that's why when I build the life celebrant, I really like to focus on, okay, who is this person that we're saying goodbye? Is there a way we can commemorate him? We had a young boy who's 11. He loved rock music. He's a musician. He has more trophy than I ever had in my 36 years of my life when I took care of him. And he's a golfer. He has a lot of hole-in-one trophy. So he plays guitar, he's a basketball player. And when he was sick for 20 months, he didn't give up, he didn't stop. He couldn't run as fast as he used to, but he didn't stop his hand from, taking up another hobby, which he took up Rubik's Cube. Yeah. And he even joined competition. So when we created his funeral, his dad called me. I was his fourth choice. He called 4 funeral companies, and basically he just asked me, what can you do for my son? And I asked more information about his son. I said, this is how we can commemorate your son's story, because he's not religious, and usually young kids, they may not have a firm belief at a point in time. So family is also not religious. And then when I share about what we could do, he liked the idea, and then he chose us as the funeral company to take care of his son's funeral. So we had a picture of him with Michael Jordan, because the father wanted to fulfill his wish. So they managed to, all these stories were so amazing. And every time when I think about all this amazing life, it's like a book. It's like a book, and I would just pull up the book and then read about his life story. And I think that's what impacts people, right? Yeah. Instead of just, okay, this person had passed away. That's why I always say funeral should not be a day in a lifetime, but a lifetime in a day. Yeah. If we can share this lifetime in a day, more people will, oh, I didn't know about him. Oh, I didn't know this about him. And they all come together. And that's what I felt it was more beautiful about having a funeral that's that's officiated by a celebrant. Now the young people, they come in, my company Chinese name is Sing Pian Zhang, and Sing is the same sound as New Chapter, but it's actually chapters from the heart. Now our showers of love is Liu Xingyu, not the showers meteor, is actually Liu Xingyu, 留下心中的话语. So the Sing, you don't look like you understand what I'm saying. It's okay. But that word sing is very important, because I always share with my team that if you don't have the heart for this industry, you cannot join my team, because you probably will not survive too long. When I say survive, because a lot of things we do, that's why the why is important. When I interview people, I always ask them, why do you want to join this industry? If their answer is, 很好赚 very easy money, people die.
People say that during an interview, very easy money.
Yes. But usually they will not make it to me. My first round of interviewers were like, okay, no, wrong choice. But they have this mindset like, it's a never dying business, or
never die.
Yeah, like never die.
Ironic.
And then, or like, my friend is in, and then so I want to join him.
Yeah.
And that's not the right reason. But what I love is when family or my staff or someone who's coming in for the job, and if they say, because I have a story, and then they share the story, like, my grandmother passed away, we felt it was not done properly. That was a strong conviction that I want to do it. I want to do something better for my grandma. Or they have gone through some death in the family that they felt, I could have done better. I was always the one arranging funeral, because every funeral is important.
Yeah.
That's why these are the people with the sing. They have the passion, they have this drive. So when you have people who have a meaning to the work they do, they will survive longer in this trade. Especially like when I talk about the bigger the why, the easier the how. So why you join this industry? If you know why, I don't need to guide you all the time. Like, this is how you should do it to this family. This is how you should take care of a baby, a family who just lost a baby. You know why you're doing this. Then how is easy. You don't even need to ask, boss, can I do this? Can I do that? You have your own autonomy and said, I know why and I know how I can take care of this family. And they just exercise their autonomy, like, okay, first, of course, the care, the empathy, the compassion for the family. So they need to exercise that. And working together as a team is important. So I'm not the only decision maker in terms of hiring.
Yeah.
I always ask my team, what do you think of this person? So young people, they join, but I hope they join for the right reason. Don't just do it.
But that's full-time hires, right?
Yeah, full-time
But
hire.
I also read that you have interns, right? Like from Hwa Chong,
Oh.
So like, assuming these people who are like 18 years old, in general, maybe haven't gone through as many things in life as other people. Maybe they haven't experienced a death in the family before. Compared to like going to intern for Ultra Music Festival, rave. They want to intern. So these people, like, what's their background or story?
I think a lot of them, they are curious. I think it's the curiosity, and also parents don't mind. Some parents, actually, I remember that particular cohort. I think there were 2 who dropped out because parents didn't agree. So that's important, you see. Some people from a young age, they have this, I want to be in the funeral business, or I want to be in the funeral industry. I even have people who I spoke to, nurses, who said, actually, when I was young, I wanted to be a funeral director, or I want to be in the funeral industry, but mom said no.
When they were young.
Yeah. It's like a calling,
Really?
So I think people do have a calling if you are serious about this trade and you want to excel further. Some people also have career change, and then they shift. Someone who used to be a pilot, they join, or someone who's an air stewardess and then they join the industry. Someone who's in a completely, like a logistics, and then suddenly felt that, there's a calling, they want to come into this industry. I think in Channel News Asia, there was a staff who shared that the mom was still very pantang, still give her flower to bathe whenever she come home.
So you say life celebrant, you want to celebrate the good that people have done in life. So hypothetical scenario, let's say there's this serial killer who has killed 10 people in his life, and and his family wants to hold something that celebrates his life. What would you say to them?
What do I say to them? I think I won't say celebrate. I think to just remember, to commemorate his life. I mean, whether good or bad, whether this person is a beggar or he's there's a story and things that he happened after, maybe he killed someone. I mean, we have to look at objectively. My role is to make sure this person has a meaningful and a memorial memorable funeral as much as I can do it. But if he's someone who's doing something wrong and maybe on trial, I don't know, I would think about it.
You haven't had that sort of situation?
As in you would think about saying no to
Yeah, I think that it really depends on the impact. But if it's just an intimate family member who come in, I mean, I study psychology, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I find what really trigger me, and that's why in the beginning I said there's some certain funeral that really impact me. Is like suicide. Why we don't talk much about it because we also don't want copycat. But I think that's also something serious that we need to speak about, because you do see there's a sort of a growing trend around the world.
Yeah.
Even that guy Logan
Paul,
talk about
Logan
the Japan.
Paul.
Logan Paul. You know, so. What he did, I mean, we don't have a debate about what he did, but that part about suicide is a big topic, and that's why it's also a big topic in my chapter. And every time we encounter someone who chose, you know, by choice, is a death by his own hand, it triggers me, like, where do they find the courage, and why do they end up so despaired with life that life doesn't give a second chance to them, or they don't want to give life a second chance?
I see.
So that also impact me when I'm, I would think about, okay, what they go through, or even the choice, why, I can even like imagine myself in that position, like see the surrounding before they go. Yeah, why do they do that? And so the question is why, because then when you see the people that they leave behind, and then that's another question that popped in my head, like, what if they have a choice to see if they have, some movies, they always show this, like, if you do this, if you choose this way of exiting, this is what happened. Look at your family. Look at what happened 10 years later. Your parents are still grieving for you. But would they have chosen a different alternative? So that, to me, I think in terms of AI, or, if one day we could be able to simulate, maybe people will not choose that. And that's why in Korea, they use simulated death experience.
The coffins and
they
everything.
put them in a coffin.
What?
What?
What? They do what?
Yeah.
Basically, they have sessions where you can go and lie in a coffin for like, I think half an hour or something like that, and just contemplate life.
Yeah.
And then after that, come out. And a lot of people report coming out and saying that they don't want to die and everything.
That sounds brilliant. I mean, I can totally see people going for it, lah.
I think there's definitely needs to talk about it, or maybe help. Reach out to more people to help them. It's such a, depression is such a huge topic that people keep debating about. And people said, like, oh, just dismiss it. Some people say, oh, come on, suck it up.
Step
out of it. Don't be a kunyang, But it's an illness that you need to get medical assistance, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's that. But now I think people get to know more about this illness, so maybe it's better. There's more awareness of assistance or SOS. But back then, you don't have all this support, and also children who, because of pressure, from parents or education, it's not reported, but we see that there's also this struggle to make sure they meet the parents' expectations.
I see.
So it comes back to the point. It comes back to the point where, what is really important in life, is it all the results? Like I did a seminar recently. I was invited as one of the panelists for my JC, Anderson JC, and is to invite all the seniors to come back and share about our life change, our transition, and but what they were more worried is, what if whatever I study, I don't get to do what I study. Do you get to do what you study? Most of us don't, right? But they are more like, what if, whatever I study, I can't apply it, I can't use it. But it's that, you have to keep learning and you have to keep upgrading. And maybe one day, you're being forced to, study this. Yeah. I grew up thinking that I should be an engineer because my family are all engineers. I remember, back in those days, there's always advertisement, be an engineer. It's like I
studied engineering.
So you're one of those, right? Yes. So I studied science stream all the way until when I was in JC. Then I realized, I'm not too sure whether I will be an engineer. Even my family said, you cannot be an engineer. You're not suited to be an engineer. Choose something else. So then I started doing economics. And then, to uni, I also did economics. So sometimes it's just, you may think this is the path, but you have to just keep adjusting, right?
Yeah.
So I think this kind of topics like suicide or depression, I mean, if we can reach out to more people to talk about it or to give them a outreach, even there are people who ask me, can you do like a death simulation in your company so that we can help people who are aimless, zombie walking just, day to day. And sometimes you can't detect depression. People who are the happiest, that's why. So
then you mentioned that some funerals do get you down. So do you think, would you rather be more objective, or do you think that level of compassion, right, is something you don't want to lose? Because I speak to some of my doctor friends, and they're like, when they first see a cadaver, a head on the table, they're like, oh my God. But then now it's just like we see a file at work, they see a head. Then that concept blows my mind. And I always ask them, how do you deal with it? They say you compartmentalize. You cannot be emotionally attached to the thing.
Really?
So do you feel that? Do you feel that would help you?
No, I think that's why I choose not to. I think I choose not to compartmentalize, like, okay, this person, because you want to be in the family's position to help them. And a lot of times they are relying on you. I mean, being a funeral director, yes, we are only considered as the role is to direct a funeral, but I have a lot of times come in to mitigate in terms of a family, dispute, or one family has 2 wives, the uncle, back in those days can have 4 wives. Yeah, but he had like a family of different families. So I have to be like, the mitigate.
Oh yeah, I've heard of stories like that, man.
I have to
mistress show up at the...
Yes, I have to check with this. But I also want them to understand that my role as a funeral director is to make sure that we give a meaningful and memorial funeral for the person who's, that we are holding. Without him, we won't have a funeral.
Yeah.
Now, you can have all your dispute, but please do not affect this 7 days or 5 days of the funeral, because what we want to do is during these 5 and 7 days, I just ask for everybody's cooperation to help to make it, the final journey. Because there's no rewind button, like, I don't like this service, I want to rewind. You can't. So let's give him the final farewell. Then whatever dispute you have, let's, you can settle it outside. So sometimes I see myself, because, being attached to the family, I think I've gone beyond and over, not just me, my team, beyond and over the role that we were supposed to do. Even managing the media, we don't want the media to come in to affect the family. So there are things that we manage as well. I don't see myself being able to do that. I feel that if you are able to feel with the family, they appreciate you more. And then they feel that you are with them, through this process. And that's exactly what I saw when I first started in the industry, that everyone treats the deceased body like a sack of potato. They don't have respect for the deceased. It's just a body.
And the whole process very procedural.
And that's the feeling. That when I first spoke to my friends, because my friends my age, they start doing surgeries maybe a few years after working, right? Then I remember talking to one of them, and they were like talking about like you open the stomach and intestine. Then I thought, they'll take out the stomach, the intestine, put on the table, right? I thought when they put him back the intestines, they'll line it up like the science textbook, like that. I said, what the fuck? They just chuck it in. I was like, what? They're like, it'll just sort itself out. I was like, you mean
sort itself out?
You don't put it like in an S shape like that. They're like, no, fuck lah. And to them, I think that's where it's different in the sense that you really are a service in the service industry, whereas them, the body is almost like it's like a car lah. It comes in, comes out, comes in, comes out. Which again, I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So
I don't feel comfortable. I mean, like every disease, before I even remove or we do the removal, the transfer, or even I'm just there to meet the family to make arrangement first. The first thing I always do is to go and talk to the departed, the deceased, so that he knows or she knows who I am, why we are here, and then we're
gonna. You mean the deceased as in
the family lah?
No, the deceased.
The deceased.
Yeah.
What?
Yes. I know you're like, huh?
I thought, she's family lah.
No, I speak to the family, but the first thing I would say, can I know where's your mom resting? I said, in the bedroom. I said, can I see her? And they won't say no. Of course, they were like, yes, please. Usually I would just say a little prayer, or just to let the auntie know that, I'm here to arrange a funeral with your family. So, your family has wanted the funeral to be held this location. So later on, please follow us to our care center where we will care for you. And then give me the power and strength to make you look good. It's a lot of times when we are taking care of the deceased, like let's say we are doing mouth closure or eyes closure. And mouth closure, there's certain technique. It's not putting super glue. Okay, you got that like, no, it's not super glue and then it sticks. But because there's always gravity, your jaw will, pull it down. So there's certain technique. But while you're doing it, or maybe just putting the arm into the clothing, the sleeves. It may be difficult, but you just have to talk to them. Like, uncle, can you please help me? And then you'll be surprised. They will just, okay, done. Thank you, uncle.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I think that's the respect that we have for the departed, that they're still someone's father, they're still someone's son, it's still someone's grandfather. I mean, treat them with respect, talk to them. Yeah, we always make sure we talk to them. And yeah.
So, are you religious?
I believe in, I don't know, people always say that I'm, I believe in the law of universe.
Yeah.
But I swing more towards, I think, Buddhism study. But I think that's where the law of impermanence, I don't know whether you are aware.
Sounds...
Law of impermanence, no detachment.
Yeah, that's Buddhism. Yeah.
So a lot of times people always also ask me like, but the body, we should not be attached to the body. Right, the body has already, the soul has departed. Yeah. So people often ask me, do you believe in afterlife? I said, well, I haven't gone there and come back and tell me. So let me find out later on. But I often get dreams of people who pass away, my loved ones.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I lost my friend 2 weeks ago. Someone was my age, she suffered from cancer for 3 years, and I dreamt of her a few days ago. Yeah, and it was like she was going through some obstacles. And I was with her in that obstacle course.
Literal obstacle course.
Yeah, and it was very bizarre. She's not skinny now. She has a short hair, and she's now like her average size because she lost a lot of weight towards her end of her life. And then I remember it's like an orientation, but I can see that it's a very challenging orientation. So it's a very bizarre dream that I have. And then at one point I lost her. I said, okay, where are you going? And I was very aware that she has passed away. Yeah. So I wanted to spend a lot more time with her. Then she had to go somewhere. And why? I always dream. So that's why you see I cannot get a good sleep. I always have panda eyes. And then at one point I met her again. And I was very sure, like, okay, I don't want to let you go. So I hold on to her, like, where are you going? Let's go together. She's like, and she was a bit, not in her normal self, right? But I can feel she was a bit down because usually she has a very wide smile. Yeah. And so we went to a place where suddenly we got roped into 2 lines. Someone just pull us in, like orientation. So there were 3 rows of people doing some demonstration or asking us to solve the riddle. And one of the riddle was, the answer was love. I only remember this because she was the one who answered it, love. And then she said to me that, I wanted to text you guys before I left. Because the last message to us was, the doctor asked her to be prepared. And she said, her last message about 2 weeks before she passed, she said, the doctor has asked me to be mentally prepared. So we were all encouraging her, So she said she didn't have the chance to tell us how thankful she was. So that message was quite striking. Yeah, it's bizarre.
So when you woke up from that dream, were you like, oh my God, it's freaky, or like, oh?
No, the first thing I went to my friends, our group chat.
Oh, you messaged?
Yeah, I quickly tell them what I remember. Like, okay, guys, I dreamt of her. So so these are the things that I felt. And then, because she's Buddhist, so maybe, she's also going through some obstacle. Because there's one obstacle, I don't know why I remember this obstacle. And I was doing it alone. And all I was thinking is she able to complete this obstacle? So it was at the top of a cliff. Yeah. And we need to walk this really narrow cliff to the hut. There's a hut at the end. And then when I was walking it, I was like, wow, if I were to miss one step, I would just die, And all I could think of is she able to do it? Yeah. And there was no assistance, so you have to just figure your way out. Yeah, I know it's very vivid, as if I'm there.
Yes,
yeah, I know. My dreams are like that. So
after going through, dealing with death on almost a daily basis, does it become easier for you, or your management tactics in terms of emotional management has become more better?
There are still things that will shock me and affects me. Sometimes tears just comes. You just trigger something in you, like, but then you have to be able to contain and be able to still complete your job. Yeah. There's sometimes where families say certain things that really touches you. That wow, the gratitude, or when they are like crying and then they are saying some things that you just trigger something, your memory. Maybe things that I should have told my dad. So I don't think it's easier. I think it's still maybe in terms of managing it, it's easier. That's why one of my friend was, he's always checking on me to say, are you okay? I haven't seen you dancing for a while. I said, yeah, I'm very stressed, because of the recent funeral. And then, he knows that he doesn't say much. When he sees me, he just give me a big hug, like, a tight one, and just like, okay, let's dance, because I just have to, get it out of my system. But when you say out, I mean just to let the emotion go out.
Because for me, I watched one episode of Black Mirror, and the next few days I'm fucked in the head already. I'm like, the world's gonna end. The humans are fucked up and all this shit. So I'm just thinking,
mind-boggling. I like that.
No, that's why, like, if a show like that can make me so screwed up in the head, I'm just thinking like that kind of death on a daily thing.
So I guess then you learn to manage
compartment. I mean, not say compartment. You manage it. So then, like right now, your business is ultimately based on people dying, right? So how do you feel if, let's say, for some reason there's a increase in deaths in Singapore, right? Which is sad, but it's great for your business. So
increase, like an epidemic?
I mean, let's say an epidemic which is not like, it doesn't, not like a nuclear blast where people are blown just into like dust, but just like a spike in deaths. So how would you reconcile that?
In terms of what my
I mean, just in terms of what would you feel like? Because I've asked this to people who work in like disaster relief and all, and like, how do you feel like you having stuff to do in your job, right? Depends on bad stuff happening. So like how do you?
No, but I think first, every death is due to say whether is it, there's always a season to, whether the whole point is being a funeral director, you have to still be able to complete the job. I mean, imagine when during SARS, where SARS period, I was not in the industry yet. My dad was in the industry. I mean, he was taking care of a lot of SARS patients. Now that you mentioned this, I remember my dad, he didn't quite understand, because my dad is not educated, and then he started his own business. He only had primary 6 education, then he started working to feed his family. But because of his lack of knowledge about SARS, he was actually wearing all the PPE, the personal equipment, personal protective equipment, back into the shop. And in that during that time, nobody wanted to do at SARS. And my dad was still like very gung-ho, still want to do it. And because of his lack of knowledge about how contagious this illness was. And I remember my mom came home and she was really worried. She's like, your dad doesn't seem to understand what's going on. Maybe you should tell him, and because, we still have my brother is very young. And my dad, because of a lack of education, he thinks that, it's so cool to walk around with that PPE. He never had that, right? The mask. Yeah, it's so cute. His mind is like, that's like a doctor, you know? But when he came home that night, I remember I had a, because my dad is he doesn't speak Chinese well, and he doesn't speak English. He's more Hokkien. My mom is always the translator. But the thing is, my mom always asked me to be the so-called the one who speak to my dad about all these matters. So I sat down with him. I said, do you know this SARS thing is quite serious, that it's contagious. So mom would like that you don't take on these cases, because we don't have a good procedure to manage it and to handle it. So I think that the next day my dad rejected, because I think that's the part where the lack of knowledge, causes a lot of fatigue. Like, even in the funeral industry, what should we do? Who should take the case? But now there's more like disaster, planning. Okay, if something like this happen, which are the appointed funeral directors that should come in? And what is the procedure that you should use? So that's why when I start the company, I also told my that when I went to US, all the deceased body are treated as infectious. It doesn't matter whether it's on the paper, whether it's infectious or not. Everybody is treated as infectious. So you should always have your PPE. You shouldn't assume that, just because there's no HIV return, you're assuming that person has no HIV. You never know. So then that's when I realized there's a need to increase and improve the knowledge of my team, or even in the industry, that it's important to always have PPE. So our team will always have their PPE, the gloves. In the past, there's no glove. You tell them glove, they go and take those, the plastic glove, not the nitride glove. So there's a lot of knowledge that was not present back in the past, but now it's much better.
I see. But you don't feel like something, when I asked you about immortality, because if people become immortal, then your business is dead.
Then you think of another business. Okay.
That's
why you never stop, right?
You won't be one of those villains who want to keep on killing off people so your business can stay.
No, I think think there's always opportunity.
Elsewhere.
Maybe who knows, I would like to invest in those. Because even to me, it fascinates me.
Yeah.
Wow, to be able to see, years' time. That's why they say, oh, would you like to crypto your body? Like, freeze it.
Cryogenic.
Yeah,
Cryogenic freezing.
Cryogenic.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. You can do that, but it's very expensive, right? And then I was thinking, actually I would. I want to see. What's that movie?
Demolition Man, is it?
No, there's another one that they were both stuck in the spaceship.
Passengers.
Yes.
Jennifer Lawrence, right?
Yes, that's right. And then it just make me wonder, like, wow, would you die because there's no one else to, go through that period with you?
Correct.
But you are able to see a lot of things that. Also,
it's
all this
cool,
just
Maybe next time when we can move to Mars or something, because it's usually a one-way trip, lah. So you can celebrate your life on Earth with one last ceremony, and then you fly off.
Who knows, man?
So speaking about things you can do with your body, what is your? I don't know if you've ever been asked this. But what are your thoughts on like necrophilia? People who have sex with dead bodies.
I think they are perverted. I don't know. I'm not. I heard a lot about that in US. Yeah, but
it was even in the second Kill Bill movie.
Yeah,
this was not a dead body. It was people in comas, which I think does happen. Yeah, like people in comas. So like, what I don't know. I don't even know what to ask.
What do you think? I mean,
I think it's fucked up also, like.
It's so I don't know. Ooh, just the thought of it.
But then you have people arguing like technically they're not doing harm to anyone.
But it's
disrespectful.
Disrespectful. There's no consent. Hello, it's
Hello,
considered rape, no?
No, but consent. See, you can argue consent, but if it's a dead body, consent from who?
There's no consent from a dead body, right?
Yeah.
You didn't get consent from the from the family
So, I mean,
or the estate owner.
I'm not saying I support it,
right.
lest you all jump to conclusions again. I'm not saying I support it. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I mean, some people argue that it's almost like an inanimate object. If someone wants to have sex with a tree, which people do, there's people who have sex with
apple
trees.
pie, you mean?
Apple pie as well. Apple pie.
American pie, right?
American pie, yeah. But like, if they argue that it's an inanimate object, what's the argument against that?
Because an inanimate object that has relationships with people and has links, family and everything, legal links to people.
I don't know.
So I think as an estate, I mean, but a tree doesn't have that, right? A tree or an apple pie doesn't have that.
It belongs to the state.
Again, you're giving me the look like as well. I'm a practicer. I'm not. Okay, I'm against it.
You life is get married, get divorced, have sex with dead bodies, and then they
Is that
die.
what you think about?
That's life. That's
Once your
life
spouse dies,
sequence.
just carry on having sex. What's the problem?
But I mean, I don't know. I think but I think these people really also need help. So I mean, when you said that, there's this American guy that I met, and he mentioned to me that only the weird people will join the funeral industry. When he said weird, like
Was he in the funeral industry or no?
He is.
He is.
I mean, that's why when I go overseas, I like to meet up with the funeral directors, because then I like to take a tour, and then I like to ask and see their team, and then you kind of see certain pattern, like there's one lady I remember seeing her. I was like, wow, she's a funeral director. She's like gothic, like every makeup, dark lipstick, wow. And I said, she's a funeral director. I said, yeah. And I was like, wow, how do you guys choose?
Yeah.
So I think there's always this concern about discrimination also. They can't discriminate. So they
can't discriminate who, you mean?
But by hiring. I mean, during hiring,
yeah,
right? You can't say that, because you are like this, we don't want you. So, I mean, when I saw her, I was like, wow, how would she be accepted, as a funeral director? Like, for instance, the lady on Tinder, I mean, would I post photos like that? I mean, I don't want to be... known, as that. But she has a great body. I mean, wow, I wish I have her body and her strength, man. She can lift you up, she said.
She can deadlift 100 kgs, yeah?
Yeah, can you? No, but I mean, when I look at that, it's like, wow. So, and when they mention like only the weirdest people will join the industry, I think that's the mindset in that country. I mean, they have a lot of funeral companies, especially they need to do reference check too and see their mental history.
Yeah, that's right.
So you wouldn't consider yourself weird?
I think I'm weird. I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. People call me crazy girl. Not at work, but in my salsa. I think that weird as in I have
very like how you say a range of interests almost.
A range of interests, yeah. Maybe certain ways or the way I see things, is a bit weird from normal people. Like, why do I want to plan my funeral? I haven't even planned my wedding. Why do I plan my funeral? But I always say, your wedding is not a guarantee, but at least funeral is guaranteed.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you plan so much, like, oh, my fairy wedding, and then after that, papa, no,
divorce.
no man.
See, you're hinting.
Spend so much money for a funeral. I mean, for a fairy tale wedding, but then you. After that, like
that
you said,
true.
the D word,
The D word.
the D word, and then but then the other D is more important. Death, it's more important.
There's another D word.
That one's guaranteed chop.
Guaranteed. Walao,
Exactly. Now you know, huh? That's why they say wedding. To go through wedding is there was a joke about walking nearer to your death, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway. But I guess the concept of death, in the past, I think it's important to always do a reference check too.
Yeah.
Whether here we have not heard of it, or all this, but just give you an example. When I first joined, we don't talk about people with this fetish, but just making comments. I didn't like it too.
About the body, is it?
Yeah, so I had...
Like what sort of comments?
So I remember I was in one of the columbarium. I was taking care of a funeral. And then there was some of the columbariums are open. One of the temple, they have a columbarium that's open. So there was a photograph of, of a deceased young girl. And I remember this is some funeral of from another casket company. He just walked past and then he made this like, oh, so young, so poor thing. But that remark, I know he means something.
Oh.
And then there was also another embalmer. And then he said in Chinese, 哎呀，这么可惜，哇，这么漂亮, so pretty, but 哎呀, so pity. And he's an embalmer, but who gives you the right to say that?
Yeah.
You should not make this kind of comment, so...
Because it's almost objectifying them as instead of treating them like people.
Like, wow, her body's so nice. Oh gosh, and then when I hear that, it's so disrespectful.
Yeah, and they're in a position where they're
they're in a position where they
the body and everything.
So I don't know. I mean, I remember hearing that. I was like, oh, this industry needs to change.
Yeah,
that's why majority of my team are ladies.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh,
interesting.
That's interesting.
That's why when I was in US, when I got the, because I was awarded a scholarship under the female funeral director, and I was the only representative from the award recipient from Asia, and all were Americans. So the conference was attended by all ladies. And then I remember sharing about my team has more ladies. So later on, and I always have this perception that, in United States, you should have more ladies too. So then a couple of them came up to me and said, what's your strategy of hiring ladies? I said, don't you guys have ladies? More ladies in your industry? Say no. Apparently more ladies studied mortuary science, but they don't end up being a funeral director or join the funeral industry. Yeah, because it could be a few factors, birth of a baby, start a family. Yeah, so they asked me what's my strategy. I said, I really don't know. I think it's just leading by example, letting them know like women can also be in this industry. But not by saying that, I don't mean or meet the guys. I mean, that's why I always say the rose is never complete without its thorns. So we need both together. To complete the entire funeral. But there's also funeral companies in Australia. There's only ladies.
Only ladies,
and they're strong, man. They're like strong, man.
They live 100
kg.
Yeah, man.
That's not the interview process, right?
Yeah. Can you deadlift dumbbell? Maybe I should do that.
Actually,
I should do that.
Yeah, that's
good idea.
I can see her like her eyes like, wait, no.
Wait, yeah, no, we have to.
Like, cannot.
So do you like read up about, I don't know, the theme of death, or do you have like a little more interest than the average person in terms of like stories about death or shows about
not
death?
just me. Everyone around me will always send me articles that's relevant. Like send me something. Like yesterday I received one. So they all know I'm in the funeral industry, and this is how I get ideas. Like whenever they say, hey, maybe you want to consider this. There's some that, in Africa, they actually dance with the casket.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then yesterday I saw one which is a long limousine hearse, and the casket opens up from the side, the door opens up from the side, and the casket actually rotates, in the middle of the hearse.
Wow.
And then, it's wow. But I didn't get to see what brand it was.
The one thing that fascinates me is, I think it's in Jainism or some sort of culture where the dead body is put on the tower and then the vultures come and eat it.
This in Tibet too. Tianzang. In Tibet.
In Tibet.
because they believe the body should go back to.
Is it put on a
nature.
tower?
Is it tower?
No, I think then there's Jainism, because in India I've actually seen a replica of the tower where they put the body, and it's all sort of a grill. So once the vultures eat it,
Grill. Are they cremated first?
no, the body is just left there.
That's it,
So then the bones can fall through the grating.
Look, okay, I didn't because my partner actually went to Tibet, and then he happened to like I said, people around me are more curious for me to hey, I saw something interesting. So apparently the guide say, oh, there's a funeral going on, so we have to wait a bit later to head over that mountain. So he asked permission, like, oh, my girlfriend is in the industry, can I go and take a look? He said, okay, but actually it's only for people who are family.
Yeah.
But then he managed to get clearance from the family, so he went and then he took a few pictures for me. So they actually put the body there, and then the vulture comes, and then when it becomes like small fragment, then the funeral director go in and just mess it up again, and then they come and pick up and finish the whole thing.
So it's just out in the open, and
out in the open.
The family is watching.
Yeah, you're just watching.
What?
Yeah. And can you accept that? But it's common in their culture, right?
And
So
what that's in what the culture? What's the
what I understand is Buddhism. They are they believe in tianzang. So this is their normal part of final resting place. Like for us, it's cremation or burial.
Yeah.
For them, they have another one which is called a sky barrier. This is like a sky barrier.
Sky burial?
Yeah.
Damn, the family's just watching, and it occurs over like a period of how many hours?
I think he mentioned about 1 hour. It's really fast, he said. 1
1
hour,
hour?
less than an hour. They're very fast. They come and boom. It's not just one or two,
So then by the end, it's just bones,
It's just bones. Then they will break it down, and then they come and finish the whole thing.
and the family's just watching.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
You talk about watching, it was so I told you I'm very curious about this industry. So I always go and see other casket company in overseas. So I remember I was in Canada. I went to one of the funeral home, and she said to me like, oh, would you want to come to our crematorium? We just installed a crematorium in our visitation center, and she was really proud of it. I said, oh, wow, crematorium in like a visitation center. A visitation center is like a parlor.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I want to show you this new technology. She was so proud of it. I said, okay. So she said, you just be acting like one of us. I said, okay. So I had my suit. I was with her the whole time. So it was a Buddhist funeral. So we all came, and then from the parlor, we slowly walked over to a room, maybe 3 times the size of this. And then there I saw like, oh, there's this like a stand, a casket stand. So the casket was placed there. Now, mind you, that crematorium was really near. So probably from where the camera is to there. I mean, then there's couch at the side. And it was so near. It's like, wow, this is really near, Imagine just now when you said Mandai.
Yeah.
You still have this window and you're on the second floor.
Yeah.
No, they are in front of the casket, right? And I was like, why would this be? And because they're so proud about this, this is called a witnessing. I said, okay. And the next thing I heard was, I could hear the funeral director, he asked the eldest son, he said, come with me. So the eldest son went, mind you, this family is Canadian Chinese, yeah? And there was this button. So it was a red and green button, right? And it was green. So the funeral director told the eldest son, when you're ready, you can press this button. And in my mind, I just like, boom, like, how can anybody be ready to burn their loved ones? And the guy's hand was like on the side of the button. He was just like holding, and he couldn't do anything. He was just holding. Then the funeral director came back again and said, when you're ready, you can push the button. And my God, it took him so long, and he didn't press it. In the end, the funeral director just pressed it. And then the funeral director pressed it, and he asked like, okay, please kneel down. So they kneel down. The minute, the crematorium door opened, the cremator's door opened, wow, you can feel the heat. Oh my goodness. I was like, why would this be a good process for the family? So all the family members kneel down because they were instructed by the funeral directors, like kneel down. Yeah, it was very traumatizing for me, even as just an observer. It's so traumatizing. Yeah.
So when you watch something like, Game of Thrones, the medieval one, where they cast the body off the boat, and they fire arrows at it, and then it hits it. Do you get like?
Oh my God! Yeah, Magnitude Reservoir. If we can.
Straight from Malaysia.
Yeah, Malaysia.
Go towards Pulau
You have to be
Ubin.
very good in aiming, like like miss, and then bye-bye. But you know, in some countries, they do sea burial. So here, a lot of people say, oh, sea burial means scattering the cremated remains to the sea, which is what you did for your father, right? But actually, in other countries, when you say sea burial, they bury with the entire casket.
Oh, the whole body.
The whole body, just boom.
Let me drop the whole
They
casket.
drop. That's called sea burial. What we are doing is scattering the cremated remains to
Countries
sea.
like what?
New Zealand, they have it.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, sea burial.
Sea burial.
Yeah.
Interesting, huh? So that's why there's many. That's why when I started and in 2008 and 9, it was my time to go and explore, and I wanted to see what the whole world actually brought. How do they commemorate the death of? The life of the person. How do they conduct the death process? And that intrigues me. What is your culture like? So I wanted to learn. So I get to see all this different practice.
Is it like a regular thing? Every holiday you go, you try
some
to
of the
go
places,
to like
I
people
know.
think want to eat
funeral.
this dessert and all. You're like,
Yeah.
let's go to a funeral.
No, that's why people don't travel with me. They're like, no, forget about her. But ironically, sometimes when I go to the country, like I remember going to Sydney, my girlfriend, I said, actually in my mind, I already planned that, okay, when I'm there, I'm going to attend the funeral course, and a funeral celebrant course. Then I will be like 3 days, I will be visiting a lot of funeral homes. So I already planned it. And then when I landed, the next day she said, oh, I'm going to bring you to a cemetery. I said, really? She said, it's the most beautiful cemetery. You must go there. I said, okay, it's near the Bondi Beach, right? And I said, okay, let's go. And she was really planning for me, like, oh, I have to show you this. So there are people who knows, my occupational hazard. I have to visit.
Speaking of that, have you heard of Skull Island in Bali, I think?
No. Skull Island. Oh, is it the one where they put all the? Is it the one? No, probably not.
Yeah, the skulls.
Just the skull of the.
Yeah, so there's this island in Bali.
They string it. Because there's one that they string.
They just take what they do is in Skull Island, I think it's the same community of like maybe 50,000 or something. I'm not so sure about the number, but there's this island where all the dead bodies are sent, and at any point in time, there are the 7 most recent bodies that have died. So then, if the next body comes, the oldest one will be go to bury, but they're all there, and like all the skulls are kept around the perimeter of the island. And I think how it started was hundreds of years ago. There was one king who wanted people to stay away from the bodies, so he just lined the island with bodies, so that people won't go there. And now it's a culture. It's a culture there.
In Bali?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I heard it, I was in Bali. Bali, I only know Seminyak and all this. But there's one small island off the main island of Bali. I think if you Google it, you can find some videos.
You just help her plan her next.
Yeah, my next trip, Yeah, my eyes just like ping, ping, ping. No, because I remember I went to Rome, and so my friend said, the first thing I asked him was, okay, is there some nice cemetery that I can go? He's like, you're so weird, but he's a tango dance friend, right? He's like, you're so weird. Okay, you can go to this one.
Yeah.
So I went, and then I went to explore. Then I saw something, the catacomb. Is it catacomb?
Yeah.
Wow, I was fascinated. I was so happy to go. I mean, you get to see how they arrange the skull heads, and wow, it's a lot of skills, huh?
Oh my god!
But I know You
So
want to go on holiday with me?
Sounds interesting. Bali, Skull Island. I tell you, see the video, it's amazing, man.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so much to learn, especially when you go to. I've seen Oscar Wilde tombstone. Have you seen his tombstone?
No.
If you Google, it's full of lipstick. Yeah, and it's very interesting. Like, why would people think about this kind of design in those era? And and there's no limitation. Like here, there's limitation. You have only 15 years, and then it's only one small plot, right? Yeah. But in other countries, you can do a lot of fascinating ideas, like computer, motorbike, or a statue of a couple. Yeah, very interesting.
Huh.
Maybe when you plan your next trip, you can think about putting cemetery into tour.
Hey guys, I'm visiting your country soon. Hit me up with the best
the best
cemeteries. If you see a funeral along the way, let me know.
Let me know. Holler.
That's why I said law of attraction. Every time I go to it's interesting. I went to maybe Lombok. And then I said, I feel like seeing how they do the funeral. And then I saw one. I told the driver, what's happening? He said, it's the funeral. So when you talk about Indonesia, what happened is they consolidate because they don't have a lot of money to spend on the funeral. So they will consolidate a lot of bodies before they have a big funeral. I was like, wow, okay.
It's like a mass wedding, but this is a mass funeral.
Yeah. And everybody was in white. So I was like, wow, it's interesting that, they all come together to commemorate or to carry out the ritual. Oh, so I mean, every country is different. I know I'm a very weird, right? So
No,
that's
no,
like
that's
weird.
good. That's why we
Now
got you
talk
on this podcast. Yeah, we don't want to talk to normal people.
Oh yeah, want to go holiday? Let's plan the Bali trip.
Bali,
okay?
Bali, I
Oh.
tell you, yeah.
You can do a documentary or podcast over it.
Surfing, partying, and some funerals.
Yeah,
exactly.
perfect
Why
trip.
not? Yes.
But next time your bachelor party or what, definitely.
Put
Yeah.
the fun in funeral.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, you do know that funeral begins with fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so it's like your Ministry of Fun.
Funeral.
Funerals. Branching out.
MOF.
Branching out.
Exactly. Oh man. Okay, it is 1:14 p.m. I know you do need to go, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was awesome talking
Oh, wow,
to you.
yeah, I didn't even realize the time.
I was like,
Just
oh
whew,
shit.
Passed, man.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was great. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you
It
for
was super
having
interesting.
me. If you see any news about Scout Island or anywhere,
Yeah.
you know
I'll let
who to
know.
send the
Yeah.
information to.
Yeah, and you guys listening as well.
Yes, send it.
Check out the live
yes,
Celebrant.
or the MOF funeral.
The Ministry of Funeral, the new collaboration
JV
between
that we're doing.
MOF and TLC.
TLC and MOF.
Exactly.
Ministry of Funerals.
Funerals. True.
Okay, cool.
Thank you
Any
so
last
much.
things? All good. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for
Okay.
having me. Thanks.
Wow.